Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Sunday, August 30th, 2020, and today we're going to be talking about favorability ratings for both candidates, Donald Trump and Joe Biden. So, today we're going to be comparing it to 2016 and talking about the impact of likability on an election. So, looking at the screen right now, you can pretty much see that Joe Biden actually has a 13-point advantage over Donald Trump in terms of the same polls and who approves of him versus not. Essentially, on this data, you can see that Joe Biden now is being approved of by Americans nationwide. Now, it's always hovered around in the negative and then the positive, but now following the DNC and the RNC, Donald Trump's approval rating has only bumped up to around negative 13, whereas Joe Biden's is roughly in the positive by 0.3%. This is very significant given that Hillary Clinton was not favored during the entire 2016 campaign season. While Donald Trump had a worse approval rating than he did right now in 2016, we were not working with an incumbent president that was on the ballot. Donald Trump has real responsibilities, and it isn't about what he says at campaign stops. It's about what he actually does in terms of serving this nation. So, when we look at the job approval rating for President Trump, right now he's at negative 10.8%. So the favorability rating is just a little bit under that. That's because people may necessarily agree with Trump on what he's doing, but may not like him as a person. But likability does have a pretty big impact on the electorate. When we see candidates that typically aren't liked by voters, it's going to be a lot harder for them to end up voting for them. Whereas in 2016, Hillary Clinton was disliked roughly the same amount as Donald Trump up through election day, or up on election day. Throughout the campaign season, Donald Trump always was in the negative more so than Hillary Clinton, but Donald Trump's approval rating sure has gone up since then, but that doesn't mean he's getting more voters. Again, he has real responsibilities, and what he actually does impacts the nation directly, rather than just a campaign spot and a highlight in the media from a Florida rally. So, I think Joe Biden's approval rating being in a positive is a very good sign for the Democratic Party. Amongst voters who dislike both candidates, Donald Trump won this voting bloc by 17% in 2016. If you look at the numbers now, Joe Biden wins them by, get this, 52%. Joe Biden leads the same voting group that said, we don't like either candidate, and they voted for Donald Trump by 17% in 2020. Joe Biden leads them by 52%. That is insane. That is almost what? A 70-point swing in favor of the Democrats. Now, the voting bloc definitely is a lot smaller. Joe Biden's numbers have hovered around 50%, and Hillary Clinton, following the RNC, there were 16% undecided voters, 44% for Donald Trump, and 40% for Hillary Clinton. Now, following the RNC, Joe Biden's at 51%, so even if Trump makes up the gap, the 8.8%, he can only get to a certain point, and Joe Biden still wins the national popular vote. Like I said, he's at 50%. He's above 50%. There is no way to take him down from a majority if all Donald Trump can do is win over remaining voters. He will literally need to convince a bunch of these Biden voters who like their candidate and are voting for him. I mean, the American public likes this candidate. Can you imagine what his supporters think of him? Whereas Hillary Clinton, her supporters didn't really like her. I mean, she still had a positive amongst Clinton supporters, but it was 60-40. For Biden, we're starting to see 90-10. And then amongst the regular American voters, we're starting to see a slight increase in Joe Biden's approval rating. Like I said, let's take a look at 2016. In 2016, Hillary Clinton led Donald Trump by 8.4% in terms of approval rating on Election Day. However, she was still at negative 13% nationwide. She was hated as much as Trump is right now. So, if you compare the hatred for Hillary Clinton versus the hatred for Donald Trump now, you can see why it's hard for us to draw a conclusion that an incumbent president who's at a negative comparatively to their opponent could win a re-election bid. I mean, Donald Trump is at the same point Hillary Clinton was, and Hillary Clinton lost in 2016, except neither of these candidates had real responsibilities. That 9% increase from negative 21 up to negative 13, or 8% increase, does not necessarily mean Trump is going to get more voters. It just means that people may like him as a person now, but also the approval rating actually means a lot more. You see, for Joe Biden, the approval rating I don't think will be as important as it is for Donald Trump, because Joe Biden is literally in retirement. Whenever Republicans bring up the fact that Joe Biden is not out speaking or going to major sites of things that have recently been happening, whether it's the protests or whether it's Louisiana, you also have to realize he is not the incumbent president. He is not there to show leadership. He's there to run against the incumbent president. That's the challenge with a re-election bid. You have to serve the American people while simultaneously trying to win your re-election bid, and that is a very tricky task. But there is nothing saying that Joe Biden needs to be serving as a leader in a time where he's practically retired. He's running for president, but he does not need to take the position too early, because regardless of what he does, Joe Biden's going to be attacked for it, and he's probably better off, to be completely honest with you, just sticking to what message he's been giving off to the American people time and time again, making number of one-on-ones with Kamala Harris or Elizabeth Warren, with a lot of these prominent Democrats, and spreading his message that way, rather than taking a Trump style campaign and having an in-person event. Honestly, don't think that's super important. Joe Biden, it really doesn't matter if people approve or disapprove of how Joe Biden, not necessarily handling things right now, but his favorability rating. But, anything that's in the net positive is good news for Joe Biden. The fact that he's approved of more than Donald Trump is significant, just because Donald Trump is a sitting president, and these numbers are what are truly reflecting on him negatively, because Biden is up 8.8% on the national average. Even if Biden was disapproved of, he's still probably leading. But if you see Hillary Clinton was -13 nationwide, she only led by 3% on election day. And I know every single day we talk about, oh, this election will narrow. Oh, the numbers will get closer. Done. Like all of these things that we talk about, we always talk about how Michigan's going to narrow up, how Pennsylvania's going to narrow up, how Florida, how Wisconsin's going to narrow up. And I honestly don't see it happening if Donald Trump continues down this trend where he's disapproved of by the American people, not just in terms of favorability rating. It's not just this. To be 100%, be very frank with a lot of the people, even if you support President Trump, you cannot deny that he's hated by the majority of Americans. Trump job approval rating, negative 10%. Job approval on the economy, only up 1%. This is down from a very significant approval amongst American voters. Even in March and April, it was plus double digits, no longer. In terms of foreign policy, Donald Trump's at -13. Let's go back to the handling of the coronavirus. Gets even worse here, -17%. Keep in mind, he was approved of in terms of handling the coronavirus around March and April. So during this time period, he was riding high, and he goes from, at his peak, being approved of by 6%, a net 6% amongst Americans, down to -18% on the overall favorability rating. And it is unfortunate for Trump that now Joe Biden has a higher approval rating than the incumbent president in a year where the president is facing a global pandemic, race issues, a lot of things happening, natural disasters. So many things are happening that are hurting President Trump. And honestly, it's all going to clearly benefit the Biden campaign, because when we see Trump's approval rating dip, we also see Biden's numbers go up. That's not a coincidence. They're directly correlated. Now, for Joe Biden, in order to be disapproved of, he probably will be as soon as he enters into office. It'll probably be very difficult for us to see how Joe Biden can be a popular president. We probably won't have too many popular presidents in the near future, to be completely honest with you, just because of how polarized our nation has become. But I think Joe Biden's approval rating will hold through Election Day. Again, he has no real responsibilities, which means that this favorability rating is just, oh, I like the guy, versus Donald Trump, oh, I literally hate him because of what he's done, or I don't like what he just did last month in terms of the economy. I don't like what he cut or what he campaigned for in terms of the Senate and pushing upon Mitch McConnell. Whatever Donald Trump has done serving as president, that could directly impact the favorability rating. Whereas Joe Biden, people only remember 8 years of him serving under President Obama, and then other than that, it's just what he says during the campaign season. And Joe Biden definitely hasn't said as many bad things as Donald Trump in terms of being negatively viewed. I'm sure the media covers for him in some sense, but at the same time, you can definitely take a number of bites from any Trump rally, and it'll seem much worse in comparison to what Joe Biden says in one of his gaffes out of 20 speeches. The Republican Party is nitpicking at this point amongst, looking at Joe Biden's speeches and taking them and sending them out and talking about whether or not he's actually mentally fit for office. And unfortunately for the GOP, that play is not working. We're not seeing it impact him on the national average. And while RCP, in comparison, may seem closer, RCP also has a lot of issues. We can look at where the election has changed, because you can see Trump, in comparison to 2016, is doing better than where he was 4 years ago. But RCP also has skewed the averages so dramatically in comparison to where it was 4 years ago. And also the 538 average, nothing really changing. Michigan, Biden's up 7%. Pennsylvania, Biden is up 6%. Wisconsin, if I can find it, Wisconsin, Biden is up 6%. These are all three states that Donald Trump, if he loses, will not win re-election. So besides that, take a look at the actual data. There is a very big difference between 538 and RCP at this time. But, following the RNC, Donald Trump's approval rating has not seen a bump. Joe Biden's hasn't necessarily seen too much of a bump following the DNC. If you take a look right around this time period, it just went up into the positive, but you know, the major takeaway is that Joe Biden is approved of more by Americans than Donald Trump, and also following the RNC, Trump didn't get too much of a bump in terms of approval, whereas Joe Biden got a slight bump, I would say. I mean, both of them got a slight bump, but it's nothing significant for Donald Trump. I mean, he goes from what? At the lowest point, negative 18% to negative 13%, but right around the convention time period, it was at negative 15. So I will say, yes, it's a 2% increase for Donald Trump. And while the approval rating may have increased by the same amount for Joe Biden, it's going from a negative to a positive, which means the majority of Americans now approve of Joe Biden, whereas maybe less Americans disapprove of Donald Trump, but it's still very much lopsided in one way in comparison. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord link for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch and then a playlist for my 2020 election videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you all tomorrow.